Actors, are you feeling burned out by an endless grind of self tapes? Or maybe nerves and fear are stealing that joy that you once had for the craft? What if I told you there was a way to reignite that spark that made you fall in love with acting? And that by doing that, we could open up a world of creativity so that your tapes and your audition process felt less like a chore and more like play. My name's Hans Christopher. I'm an actor and the creator of the Working Actor series, and trust me, I have been where you are. But a few years ago, I discovered a secret that transformed my entire approach to acting, and today I'm going to share that with you in 3 simple steps. Now, what you're about to see is a sneak peek from my mastermind series in the Actors Playground. If you're interested in becoming a member, sign up today because the price is going to go up at the end of the month. Now, if you're liking this content and you want to see more of these videos, just like and subscribe. It motivates me to want to do more of these. And that said, let's dive in. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. At some point in my life, acting stopped being fun. It stopped being play. And it's interesting because I didn't learn this lesson, or I didn't learn this story until after. I'm just going to go back and talk to you about what it was. It was the beginning of COVID, and I'd been acting for probably 10 years at that point. I'd had some success. But for me, class and the class environment was not a fun place. I would go to class, and before I'd get there, I would feel nervous. I would try and talk myself out of going. I didn't feel good. I felt uncomfortable. I had booked roles, I had done some stuff, but I just didn't feel good in class. I'd leave there feeling worse than when I started. I'd be in class for a year, 2 years. I just didn't feel like I was growing. I didn't feel I just didn't feel play. And I didn't know it at the time. And then the COVID happens, and I was forced to take an online class, which I'd never wanted to take an online class before. I'd always said, or I'd always thought an online class wasn't good because it wasn't like what you learn in class. You're not there, you're not working off someone. It just doesn't feel the same. So I came up with all these reasons why an online class wouldn't be good. COVID happens, and there's literally nothing happening. No auditions, no nothing. And I was like, I have to do something. And my friend was getting into this online class, John Markland's, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna try this class. I'm gonna do it. And I did it in the corner of my room right here on this computer. And the first class I was in there, something completely different happened. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I went into this thing, and I remember having this thought like, well, I don't really care what happens. I'm just going to go for it. And I did that, and I had so much fun in doing that. And I realized, like, because I was in the confines of my own room, because I was on this computer screen, I wasn't looking at this place like a proving ground. I was able, because I was in the safety of my own room, I was able to play. And then the next time I go to class, because I'd started to feel this thing, I decided to risk even more. I decided to do things that I would never have dreamed of doing in class, just because I started to feel a little more emboldened, a little more empowered. And I didn't know what this was at the time. I now call it the little artist. I now speak of it in play. But it wasn't until I came out of this class, and for the first time, I was getting all the things that I'd always wanted to get out of class, which is the teacher to like me, other students or my peers to think of me as an actor or as a professional, all the wrong ways to go into a class, the proving ground stuff. I was finally getting it, and I was getting it because I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. I was actually just playing. I was going in, having fun, and ultimately what I learned was that going in there, making it a proving ground was completely killing my creativity. So I came out of that, and I found that in my work, in my auditions, I started doing the same thing. It was as if, because I'd started to build this muscle, and I started to develop this kind of confidence in risking and taking, bold risks and willing to fall on my face. There were classes in there that I did things that were so crazy and they didn't work. It's not like it was good every time, but I would be able to laugh it off and be like, well, that was weird, and then start over and try something else. And what I realized is like I started going to self tapes and started doing auditioning, and I was like, wait, this is actually showing up in my auditions now. Like this mentality wasn't like it was the exact same thing, but all of a sudden I started showing up to my auditions, and instead of feeling like it had to be perfect and I had to do all these things right, I started bringing a little bit of that in. It was as if it was traveling with me. And this play spirit I was developing started kind of getting packaged up and going with me. And then I remember I had this audition. It was the first in-person audition I had since I'd taken these classes and started to develop this mentality. And I went into this audition and I remember I was nervous, of course. I was scared, but I also was like, let's just play. Let's just go. And the first take I did, it was a little out there, a little crazy. And then I got to do another try. And before, doing something like that would have really gotten me in my head and made me be like, oh God, they don't like me. This isn't good. Da, da, da. But instead I was able to just jump in and try something completely different. And I booked the role and it ended up being a really cool little project. And man, I came out of that being like, there is like a secret sauce here. There's something in this that if you can learn to develop this sense of play, it's like magic. Now, here's the thing, depending on, how sensitive you are to things, you may be going into a class right now and being able to play. You may go into that class and be totally fine with it being a playground and having fun. But if you are like me, and you're turning it into a proving ground, then it's not a place where you can grow that thing. It actually can work against you and hurt that play spirit, hurt that kind of. If you think about it like the little artist, you make it a scary environment. You make it a place that he's afraid or she's afraid to risk or be bold, because all these adult things that you've been taught as you've grown up, which is we have to do it right, or we're going to get judged if we do it wrong, or we're going to get critiqued. That inner critic is going to come out and say, don't do it this way. If you do this, they're going to laugh at you, or they're going to call you bad, or they're going to know you're not really an actor. All these things that are inside that end up controlling that little artist, that child artist, from being able to play and play freely. So ultimately what I found was that there's this like secret sauce, and if you have to start in the corner of your room and create your playground, if that's where you have to start to build this environment, that's where you have to start, and that's totally fine. Just trust. The only thing we need to do, and this is going to go to my points, here's three things that you can do to start to facilitate and grow that play spirit, that playground mentality is what I call it. Is number one, you have to find your playground. Find and create your playground. The amazing thing that we all have the opportunity of right now is we have to create self-tape spaces for our auditions. What an amazing and perfect environment to be able to turn into your playground. Like that is the starting point. That is number one. That's our calling card for getting jobs and getting reps. And we have the ability to turn that space into our playground. So that's step one, is you want to create a place where you feel free to fall on your face. You feel free to try new things out without any fear of judgment, any fear of criticism or shame from yourself or others. And trust me, if you think other people are judging you, then you are judging yourself probably double that. So the most important start of this process is to create your playground. The second thing you need to do is to find your playmates. Now, what do I mean by this? I'm going to give you a little story of something that happened to me. One of my best friends, we both started in acting, our first acting class together. And this guy was a professional football player, and he came in with this mentality that was just, I've never seen someone work so hard. And early on, he had success. He booked a series regular out of our first school, 2 years into doing it. And he's an incredible artist, incredible actor. But because I was so sensitive and that little artist in me was so sensitive, anytime I would go and read with him, it would be a prison. I was in so I looked up to him so much that I could not, that child artist in me could not play because I was in so much fear of his judgment, of the way that he would think about it, that I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. So I realized, even though I wasn't able to name it at the time, working with him at the time, I wasn't able to have the playground. I wasn't able to create that safe space because of my fear of judgment from him and what he would think about me. Now, the same thing for me happened in classes with teachers. I would always put myself in this place of trying to impress the teacher. So I wasn't even able to make the classes I was in at the time playgrounds because it was a proving ground for me of trying to prove to the teacher that I deserved to be here, to prove to my other classmates that I deserve to be here. So think of it in that terms. You need to find people, actors, that make you feel comfortable playing, comfortable risking, comfortable trying out an accent that you are terrible at, just so you have an opportunity to get it out and see what it's like. If you can foster an environment where you create your playground and then next you find your playmates, you find those people around you who you don't feel judged in front of and you're able to just play, it's going to allow that little artist in you to be bold, to make choices and risk, and most importantly, grow. And that is the most important thing you can do, is to start to foster an environment where that little artist feels safe to go. And then the final thing and the third thing you have to do is you have to play. You have to play. And what I mean by that is auditions, shooting on set, um, anything where you're being judged by casting, by an agent, by um, maybe it's class, maybe it's not, is an inability for you to actually play because you have to do it good, right? There's a thing that has to happen. A true environment where you can play is a place where you can try things out. You know, when you're on set and you're shooting that scene, it isn't a time you want to try out a new thing. That's not the time to go and be like, I'm gonna see what happens if I do this, you know? That's the time where you do anything you can to make sure you get that thing as best as it can be. And hopefully in the preparation and the things that you've learned and how to dive into the character, you can do that. But a place to play is a very different thing. A place to play is a place where you can try something new out, risk something incredibly bold, and not have to worry about judgment or fear of what other people will think. So those are the three things that you can do that builds this ability to play, that builds this sense of creative life, creative spark that will start to get you to look at these things as an outlet for your creativity. And most importantly, you'll start trying things that you never would actually be able to try in the audition or in the final verdict or the final product, but in because you know you've created this environment where it's safe to do this, you start risking and doing things that you'd never thought you were even capable of. And it's once you start to see like, oh wait, I can do that. I did do that. It travels with you. And that's the best thing is once you start to see it traveling with you, it's as if you go, oh my God, I like hacked this code. I figured this thing out. And then you want to play more, then you want to try more things out because you see it going into your auditions, you see it going into your work. And you give yourself permission to be bold and take risks and do things. So ultimately, those three things, if you can get yourself to a place where you create your playground, you find people you can play with who are free of judgment, free of having to worry about looking good, where you can just go and play and express something and try different things out. And then you play. You give yourself whether it's the 30 tape challenge, whether it's working on monologues, whether it's doing something, whatever you want to do, give yourself opportunities to play. This can be in a classroom. You will notice very quickly that if you're creating a classroom in an environment that's a playground, you'll be laughing, you'll be having fun, you'll want to go to class. Everything starts to, it doesn't have, you don't have this nauseous anxiety, this feeling of trying to look good. It starts to become a place where you have fun. For me, I had to find it in the corner of my room first, and then it started expanding. That was another part. I got back into a class. It was the first time in my life I had fun in class. I started going to class and being like, "This is incredible. This is so much fun." Um, so that's what I wanted to kind of share with you guys today, is this process that I've found in finding my play spirit and finding my play mentality and emboldening this little artist that kind of lives within all of us. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, the 30 tape challenge is starting soon. Don't worry, it's free, so if you're not in there, get in there. And as always, stay curious, stay inspired, and stay young. Break a leg.